Thank you for joining us after lunch. We very much appreciate. We managed to arrange the farthest room from any front door, but we're glad you're here. We're very excited about this. Also, we're down on the show floor where we'll have an opportunity for anyone interested in follow-up and other meetings. Please join us down there. It'd be great. But right now, we've got a pretty interesting set of presentations. I want to introduce the speakers. First, Carl Connolly, who is CTO at Ingram, and also teaches me a lot of technology and has built this SIM to cloud discussion that you're going to see today, which really puts a lot of context in the value of connectivity based on the results and outcomes that all our mutual clients are looking for. Howard Holtham, who I've just met from Gigam, which I'm trying to say correctly.
It's giga-ohm?
Giga-ohm.
Like a resistor ohm.
Like a resistor, a giga-ohm, who will be speaking about some trends today and also is going to be working with us in the future to take some of this messaging that you're seeing today and make it more interesting and partner-oriented. We also have some other members of the giga-ohm team in the audience. And last but not least is John Tomthat, who is kind of the father and uncle of the collaboration between T-Mobile and Ingram. So, welcome.
Thanks, George. Appreciate being here.
Very glad you're here. All right. I'm going to begin with a bit of a quick discussion on what is the value proposition that we're presenting, and really a lot of the discussion today is around why are we partnered with Ingram and why is it important to us? And I think many of you share that, but I think there's some new folks in here that are kind of sizing up Ingram and looking at why partner. For us, though, the big point of today's conversation is to explain our commitment to the partner channel and why is it so important, and give you some value points for not only for your opportunity to monetize 5G, but also understand that we're building a next generation enterprise ecosystem. And we're going to put some discussion around what does that mean, where it's not typical multi-tier distribution, which of course works and lives, but looking at having much more integrated and coordinated capability to deliver these outcomes, including service models from companies like T-Mobile, along with all of the specialized services that you might provide with your customers. So it's ultimately about showing up in the client's office and providing results-based discussions as opposed to either hammering a transaction or discussing a point tool that we might all have. The other part about Ingram, which you need to know, is that there's two parts of Ingram. There's the Ingram that was and exists at great scale, and there's the Ingram to be. And I'm sure John is going to talk about that, the investments in platforms that are being made, the relationships that are being leveraged, and the capabilities that can be brought to bear for everybody in this room. This picture just kind of epitomizes a little bit about what I'm talking about. I believe the enterprise business is a relationship business from the context of our customers are looking for partners that have specific extreme domain knowledge and specific performance. Meaning, things go wrong. The question is, how do we handle that when it goes wrong? And how do we, in fact, continue to have a value continuum for these clients? So today, the reason there's never been a better time to work with us is because we have an unbelievable 5G network, which I'm going to give a few details about how we got there. And then Carl is going to talk a little bit more about some of the use cases when you hear what we're doing with SIM to cloud and how you potentially could fit into that business model and why. The other is I'm going to go through a little bit of the detail of a support organization that we're creating right up the road. We have a giant care center here, and we're creating a channel enablement center. And I'll give you some details about that and what that means in terms of doing business not only with T-Mobile, but doing business with all our partners that we're building in this ecosystem. And then I run the B2B channel and distribution, which means I have 3,300 qualified sales folks across the segment model available to work with your teams to deliver the message and solutions that we're talking about to the clients. So that type of triangulation, where we can unlock each other's relationships in a way that helps you drive extension and scale, is very, very important. It's important to us, and I think you'll see clearly that that's a great advantage with our brand and your brand and Ingram's brand together. So This is a kind of a staple. If anyone that runs sales doesn't have a pyramid, it's probably not a fully vetted presentation. But the idea that what's happening in the world is that the titles and changes and the descriptions of what partners and distributors and VARs is changing a little bit. But from our aspect, we think this hierarchy kind of sizes up how we've been looking at it and where we're going. You see the base of all this, OEMs and solution partners. There's a lot of the key elements to any solution that we want to bring to market. You see traditional OEMs, you see device manufacturers, companies like Akamai that allow us to deploy very simple APN environments so that we can do trusted connectivity. You see companies like Dialpad, which is a soft PBX that runs on Google that allows us to have over-the-top lines coupled with voice lines on various connected devices, whether they be laptops or hardened tablets, for example, in mobile capabilities. So the ability to take a call anywhere, to have AI-focused callback capabilities and other basically extended office capabilities so that you can meet the customer where they want to transact, or you can meet the employee where they actually work and give them as much capability as possible. You see some of the other capabilities on here, companies like Movius, Geotab, et cetera, where we're deploying very unique capabilities as derivatives of voice. Movius, for example, provides a cloud provisioned voice line that then collects WhatsApp, SMS, voicemail, and other key information that could be recorded for compliance. In that case, we have 24 of the largest banks that are now using this technology to fend off hundreds of millions of fines. Again, it's pretty straightforward, but it also opens the door for an entire connected story, which I'll talk a little bit about. But as you can see up on top, and there's some companies in here, the CEO of Pixel is here, MCPC, Ingram Micro, Green Pages, CDW, Insight, et cetera, all allowed us to connect faster and have a shared capability with Ingram. One of the criteria of how we wanted to scale our channel from our existing capability was to have a super high integrity company to work with so that we would have shared compliance, governance, training, and also integrated service models. So increasingly, we could put together complex, not only software, but certainly communications architecture, and shield our joint customers from the complexity of that in a way that was also adaptable by segment or vertical, so that ultimately it would make it easier for clients to buy and consume the technology that we're all providing. A company the size of Ingram, with its scale and capability to do distribution, coupled with the capabilities that you have in this room, make it very, very unique and an interesting way that we think, just kind of speaking selfishly about carriers, we think that the other carriers have a very difficult time adjusting both their channel distribution and their service model to address the new changes that we're talking about. Of course, SIs, hyperscalers, the work that we're doing with various providers, it all becomes integrated. So the idea is that as this builds out over time with a great control function and capability from Ingram, it allows us to scale with assurance around integrity, compliance, and also the financial strength of both firms to make sure that we can underwrite exactly what we say we're going to do with both our partners and our clients. So I said up the street, not too far from here, we have an existing customer care center, which is a phenomenal collection of people that have extreme domain knowledge around everything to do with connected technology, voice technology, and all of the other related aspects of servicing an enterprise customer, everything from billing to switching capabilities. We're adding a partner enablement center of excellence, meaning we're going to embed OEMs and partners in that center so that you can share information, best practice, and immediate response to specific partner care capabilities, so that you as a partner and you as your customers have different levels of basically authority to call in and get answers faster, and also to exchange information with us so that we can onboard partners in a way that's realistic, also reasonably fast, and certainly more accurate instead of passing a lot of information around. In addition, a staff of order-to-cash specialists and also commission teams so that we can make payments faster, we can make payments more accurate, and we can help you integrate your billing systems in a way that's unique, right? In addition to that, we'll also embed our internal customer and partner experience teams so that as we do manual processes, we can migrate from those manual processes and over time integrate them into our systems to make it easier and faster. But in the meantime, we want to make sure that we have the best possible support to reduce the cost of doing business with T-Mobile, to increase the satisfaction of our joint customers, and make sure that we have very, very tight integration of capabilities for the future so that we can build roadmaps that are a little bit more bulletproof and are not reactionary, but actually can look around the corner with you as we go forward. Now, along with a partner pyramid, it's pretty good to have what we call the spectrum layer cake. Now, the reason I put this up here is not to bore you to tears, which you can do, but it's actually to describe why I even have a right to come up here and talk to you. Because if you are a modern communications provider and you are claiming 5G capabilities and 5G capability and 5G security, the basis of all of that is a spectrum, right? A spectrum set of spectrum capability that was built on the backs of a lot of great decisions and investments on both Sprint and T-Mobile. So after this merger, we basically emerged with low, mid, and millimeter wave density, which allowed us to spread 5G across the topographies, either within cities, within very wide open spaces with the 600 megahertz, and in addition, in what I guess we would call the NFL cities, where we had very dense either venues or tower gap. So this has allowed us to deliver these maps where we can say definitively that we have 98% of Americans covered, and we actually have the best network. And there's a lot of great cases of that, of independent studies. The other aspect of doing that, besides collecting the spectrum, was having between $10 and $12 billion investment capital, so that we can actually deploy. We're now at a pace where we're deploying 1,000 towers, or at least antennas on towers, and new towers every week.
Hey, George, let me ask a question real quick.
Yes.
Does everybody understand why that's so important? So let's imagine for a second you're starting an NBA team, and you get to join the draft, and you've lost 12 times because you're the smallest, newest NBA team. What if you got to draft from every single year forever the best players of that year, keep them in a box, and deploy them all at once under the best coach in the world? Like, that's literally the way this, go back one slide?
Yes, I will.
That's the way this works. When new spectrum is released, the smallest competitor gets first crack at buying the spectrum. They get the biggest draft. That's what happened for decades. T-Mobile bought spectrum that no one else had. They weren't allowed to have it. They owned the spectrum. The goal was to give them a competitive advantage in releasing new technology, getting into new markets, kind of not being the redheaded stepchild, which is fine if you have good management, not fine if you don't. T-Mobile, in buying Sprint, didn't buy the subscribers. They bought this. For 5G to work, it requires this. You cannot make 5G work without this. What you get instead is a part of 5G. What makes 5G so complex is the radios require extremely fast radios for extreme low latency, extremely fast radios for high throughput, and extremely slow radios for long distance. Without the three, you don't actually complete the 5G stack. This is by far the most important thing to pay attention to. Right?
Howard is here today to remove any subtlety that I may have in my discussions. So if I get a little opaque, Howard will pop up and have that discussion. But it's quite true. But connectivity either works or it doesn't. It's either excellent or it's not. So the ability to deploy is very, very important. It's not the whole story. But this is the other side of the story, that there was a lot of hype about 5G for the last 5 years, basically. So it's like, when is it going to come along? When is it going to come along? Who's going to have devices available? So now there's a great population of 5G routers, whether it's the new MG51 from Cisco, or the Cradlepoint line, or Inseego, et cetera. So now people are beginning to see the capabilities of connectivity, and I'll go over a couple of quick scenarios, like primary and secondary active-active for retail stores, where suddenly, instead of having 5 ISPs, they might have a dual SIM or 2 dual SIM devices in a store and have 3 times the amount of connectivity for half the price with no construction. So those are the type of disruptive things that could be the basis for additional applications and capabilities that can be deployed that are network reliant. For me, these studies are pretty clear, right? 66% expect transformational and significant business impact for 5G. 56% will use 5G to connect critical systems and process. 59% are increasing investment in 5G devices, right? We actually see these numbers changing quarter by quarter. Because why? Because traditional equipment is basically amortizing, right? It's depreciating out. And people are now, beyond just having the handset, they're starting to see the level of connectivity. Also, the nature of what's going on. There's whole markets, particularly the mid-market. In order for them to compete, they need to have true digital transformation at the device level, and also have to have the right cloud connectivity in order to process and manage to be just like a very, very large company. So all of a sudden, whether it's a small hospital, whether it's a small restaurant chain, or it's a single outlet, a doctor's office, connectivity is becoming so important in its ongoing performance, in its relationship to its cost. It's changing how people are looking at 5G, and it's happening right now. So we think it's a great opportunity to jump in the game. Here is an eye chart that Carl is going to go into a little bit more deeper on his slides, but these are our focus areas where we find we have competitive advantage, something that we have a moat around. We have a lot of customers, and of course, that competitive advantage is grounded in the fact is we have specific capabilities that other folks don't have. For me, the whole idea of having voice and collaboration in a modern way, coming from a cloud environment that's less expensive and easier to maintain than traditional telephony, to be able to couple that with use cases by vertical is very, very, whether it's public safety, whether it's healthcare, whether it's in a retail store, decreasing the costs of provisioning and managing. There's partners in the room that's their entire work of creating a service management structure and a provisioning capability that cuts the costs in concert with us, where we're creating a no point the finger service model, right, for fast resolution and a lot of get it fixed and ask questions later approach. We'll talk more about some of the more advanced capabilities, but the whole idea of having business internet, like we just talked about, that's easy to plug in, very, very straightforward, and can be a building block going forward to have much more sophisticated capabilities for backhaul and other hybrid networks. Carl is going to talk about that. Everything we do is a stepping stone to allow our customers and partners to start with something very straightforward and build the capability and capacity up to a very, very sophisticated level. So companies like Alaska Airlines and Delta can be managing their underwing operations and their cabin crews and their curb to kiosk connectivity for their applications. Hospitals can be managing their capability for peak emergency room operating theaters. Distribution companies can be moving massive amounts of devices and tracked items within distribution centers, being able to connect to cloud-based applications, and do it in a way that's more seamless, less expensive, and more orchestrated. Right here, for me, the outer ring are a lot of very interesting use cases that everyone tried in, excuse me, maybe standing in front of the rings, tried in 4G era, where some of them worked okay, and we were able to test the use case. Now, they're actually becoming stunning in 5G. Particularly the combination of data and video and various virtual reality and augmented reality that allows for new training scenarios, not just entertainment, but any kind of industrial or higher tech or sophisticated learning that needs to be done by the connected worker can be power assisted in ways that are unbelievable. And then for me, what I'm getting the most activity on is large companies saying, well, hybrid work is here to stay. In addition, I'm changing and evolving all of my applications internally and externally, and they all require connectivity in a different work environment or ergonomic. And that could mean a Zebra phone, it could mean a Honeywell special device, it could be something manufactured very, very specific for a medical application. They all require care, connectivity, and to be able to be provisioned and managed and be made secure so that the enterprise is safe and the worker themselves has something that is relentlessly available, which is what people want. They want constant and relentless availability. So that's my story. I'm sticking to it. Also, would love to meet anybody individually. I'd like to talk more about why Ingram is an important capability for us, and certainly I can talk endlessly about T-Mobile's network, but I wanted to give you a little taste of why, number one, how committed we are to the channel and why, how important it is to have as a partner a company like Ingram, and also, in case you haven't been bored to death on it, understand that 5G is here at a point now where it can be monetized, it can be used to create better value, and can help make our brands together even better in the eyes of your clients. So I'm going to turn it over to Carl, who's going to make sense of what I said.
Thanks, George. So fantastic. I think it's very fitting that we're here at an innovation conference because of all the technologies that we get exposed to, very few really make a huge impact on us from a generational perspective. And I would argue that is 5G. For the next 5 years, 5G will be the standard. And as George said, there has been a lot of hype, right? In fact, John and I, we operate a business unit inside of Ingram, and our partners are the mobile network operators. And not T-Mobile, but another one, a couple of years ago, we got talking to them about 5G. And it was so much hype, right? So much hype. And yet now, working with T-Mobile, we realize how strategic that relationship is and what it means to Ingram partners, right? So it is literally here and available today for you to take advantage of, to start building into your managed services offerings. So we built a framework. I'm going to walk you through this framework, and then I'm going to explain to you 3 of the major use cases that you can easily capitalize today and start making money on 5G today and set the tone then for the future for yourselves. First and foremost, when we started talking to our partners, it became super apparent to us that many of them didn't know anything about cellular. Nothing about 5G, in fact, nothing about the other Gs, or very little about the other Gs. So we thought about it and we thought, okay, we're going to have to build a lot of awareness and education. And the reason that is probably because all the other Gs were essentially proprietary lock boxes, right? If you wanted to deploy a 5G network, you'd go to Huawei or Ericsson or Nokia and get their gear, stand it up, you needed a lot of expertise. 5G, though, just because of the way it's built, it is a services-based architecture, and that means that it's open to partners to explore, to innovate, to leverage, and to do some amazing things that architecture is enabling. And that's only going to get better for you all as we go into the other Gs. So first and foremost, as I mentioned, when we wanted to help our partners understand the business opportunity of 5G, you have to start with the outcomes. What is it the customers actually want? What is the reason that they're even contemplating 5G? Is it 5G? Is it Wi-Fi? Is it a combination of both? Let's start fundamentally by having conversations with the customer about the outcomes that they're trying to effectuate and why 5G then is a good fit. And that's sort of in the top, the need and the use cases, right? We look at is it a low latency, high security, high bandwidth? Is it the reliability for a medical use case, for example, that you need that Wi-Fi or some other network can't deliver? Most likely it's a combination of all of these. But you have to start with those fundamentals. And then we're very fortunate to partner with T-Mobile because T-Mobile has an amazing team called Advanced Network Solutions. So when our partners come to us and they want to engage on specific verticals, we can have the business conversation with them all day long. But where we're lacking in Ingram really is that cellular insight, the capabilities that it takes to effectuate the outcomes in these verticals. And T-Mobile have that in spades. Right? So when you partner with Ingram, you're partnering with T-Mobile. There's 3 legs to this stool. There's T-Mobile, there's Ingram, and there's the partner. So they have all of this industry insight that we're leveraging, so we can bring that to you and have those conversations. Then the great thing is George talked about the layer cake.
Could be John. Have you met Howard? Yeah.
That spectrum, it's incredibly important, okay? Because increasingly now enterprises are faced with a situation. They need low latency, they need high bandwidth, they need high security. Wi-Fi just won't cut it. So they're now looking to see where private 5G could potentially fill the gaps that they have in their wireless approach. And with T-Mobile, as George explained, they have invested in huge amounts of spectrum that covers all of the use cases, whether it's public, private, or most likely some combination of both, which will be hybrid. Right? So we're with a partner that has the asset that can effectuate those business outcomes. Then you know and love Ingram from our portfolio, right? That's traditionally where our partners come to us and they can get all the products that they need to be successful. We have a massive portfolio. But when we thought about this and how to help the partners understand what is the opportunity, we want to compartmentalize our portfolio such that they can understand, they can figure out where they're transacting today and where they may need help. And that's why we call it SIM to cloud. Because essentially, to effectuate the outcomes that you've discussed and that you've figured for the verticals, you need to basically build everything from the endpoint right through to the applications that are running in the cloud. And just know that we have capable partners, capable technologies, and capable services and solutions that can effectuate those outcomes. For example, in the SIM, MCPC is here. Our friends who deliver endpoint as a service, right? All of the managed devices that can leverage 5G. And as you move up the stack, get into premise networking, for example, that's a conversation perhaps around fixed wireless access, and we're going to talk about that in a moment. And then today, many of you are cloud providers, cloud service providers, right? You've got workers now connecting on any device, anywhere, at any time, and those assets most likely are going to reside in the cloud. And therefore, you need to have a full portfolio to help drive outcomes. And then at the bottom there's services. Right? You have spent a lot of time investing in your businesses, building your competencies, and building your skill sets. And we want to ensure that we can incorporate those, your managed services, into the engagements, such that you have a seat at the table. So anytime you have an opportunity, just know you can leverage T-Mobile for their expertise in the vertical, Ingram for our portfolio and the breadth of services that we can offer to supplement, complement, and augment what you do today. So we're going to talk about 3 basic use cases today that are really an opportunity for everybody in this room to make money on 5G. First is the fixed wireless access, growing in leaps and bounds, and we'll explain to you what that means, what the use cases are, and where the opportunity to make money is. The 5G connected worker, you're going to be hearing a lot about this over the next year from Ingram Micro. This is an opportunity to provide ubiquitous coverage to workers of lots of different categories and lots of different devices and lots of different profiles. And last but not least, advanced network solutions. As I mentioned, you don't have to go this alone. That's where you can leverage T-Mobile's expertise. Their advanced network solutions team have industry expertise that can bring 5G solutions to bear for you. You can capitalize on everything that they've been doing. John, do you want to touch a little bit on fixed wireless?
One of the things that Carl and George sort of skipped as part of the introduction was why the relationship was so profoundly strategic to Ingram. So, little known fact, 2 years ago, we were tasked to set off to figure out what was the single most disruptive technology that could existentially change Ingram. And after the study, consulted a number of analysts, came back and said it in fact is 5G, particularly public, private, and most important, hybrid. And the question is, why? If you sort of think about it for a moment, we have a ginormous Cisco business. And that's a technical term, ginormous. We have a ginormous Aruba business. In fact, we have a ginormous networking business. So the question was, how do we cross the chasm between legacy technologies, wireline networks, and into the future? And we were then convinced that the only way we could do that was to partner with T-Mobile. And I'm delighted to say that partnership has now resulted in a reality where Cisco MG51, which is a 5G router, can be upgraded into existing networks that now provide backup and failover, right? On Cisco terms, on Cisco paper, and most importantly, in a Cisco architecture. So I can't tell you how important the Cisco relationship is, and now Cisco and T-Mobile together, right? So when we tell you it's about fixed wireless now allows you to just bring connectivity ubiquitously to remote locations, but do it in a trusted enterprise-grade router. So anyways, Cisco's.
It also gives you the ability to take an SD-WAN project by your customer to the next level. How many of you have done SD-WAN projects or talked to customers about SD-WAN? Right? Like I did one as a customer. I was the CIO for a global industrial manufacturing company. We did SD-WAN.
That's where I met you.
We did 5G at all of our locations because before that we had MPLS, and MPLS is fine, but it's kind of single vendor and a little archaic. But we're all in a contract. So I do SD-WAN, I want multiple ingress points. Adding 5G was turned on in roughly a day. Right? No one had to trench, no one had to dig to any of my manufacturing facilities. If it was covered by 5G, I had 5G in a day, and I had a secondary or tertiary connection methodology that just worked. Like think about, that's transformational from a project standpoint. I absorb the MPLS that my customer already has, that they're in a contract with. I add that secondary or tertiary reliable link, and then I work with them on that contract to phase that out and phase it into what makes the most sense for them. Right? 5G is going to be the technology that eats everything. Right? How many of you have customers that have an office that's in an office building? Wi-Fi works fine in this corner, but it doesn't work fine in this corner, and there's 37 wireless networks right here and 37 radios. Right? 5G turns that off. You just get connectivity. How many times have you troubleshot for someone? Right? Oh, that's actually a mobile worker. They're on 17 different Wi-Fi networks throughout the month. Of course the quality of service is going to change because they sit at 6 different Starbucks. School districts, anybody do school districts? They hand everyone a laptop, a Chromebook, and then say good luck, connect it to Wi-Fi. And now they have to support 16 different types of Wi-Fi and all of the security implications of Wi-Fi. 5G is a private connection. You don't have the same security issues, right? I'm not slicing from public broadcast radio and whatever malicious attacker is also broadcasting on public broadcast radio on an open Wi-Fi connection, right? How many times have you responded to someone that had a malware attack that came because when they were at that particular time they used public Wi-Fi, they forgot to turn on their VPN, right? Not to mention, if anyone's been following the trades, augmented reality. Augmented reality gives us the ability to jumpstart the trades. I can teach someone how to be a plumber with a headset, which I can't do. Work on an air conditioner with a headset anywhere in the world. Broadcom has new SoCs for 5G that cut the cost to 1/10 what they were a year ago. 5G is going to eat the world. Sorry.
Right after AI, right immediately after.
Well, AI is the plate and the spoons and the ingredients.
Okay, there you go.
So one of the key takeaways is where is Ingram investing into the relationship with T-Mobile, particularly through now till the end of the year. Aside from fixed wireless, for those of you who don't know, we're one of the largest laptop distributors globally. In fact, on any given day, we ship more Lenovo, HPI, Microsoft Surface than anybody else. And all those devices are coming out with 5G modems, right? So for the back half of the year, the focus is going to address the what we define as the logical connected worker, AKA white collar to start, but then we'll be working throughout the entire vertical chains and developing solutions with that, and we're working with the team at GigaOM to help us.
Yeah, just to kind of put that into context, when you think about today, the average worker needs to be always on, connected with access to the cloud on multiple different types of devices. But it's not one size fits all, clearly, right? So what we tried to do is give you a sense of the different verticals. And as opposed to each worker that's in there will have a different profile. They'll need different applications, and the endpoints will vary depending on the industry. All of these will be 5G. So it's a huge opportunity for our partners to leverage T-Mobile plans, potential subsidies, and services, and then bundle that with Ingram Micro. Now, we also have created a program called Ignite. If you're not familiar with that, that's where you as a partner, every single device that you activate on the T-Mobile network, you get paid for. So it's all this incremental revenue giving your customers a product that they want and they need.
That's a kind of an important thing to also talk about. I joined GigaOM a year ago. Before that, I was a CIO, a CISO, and a CTO to various organizations. One of the biggest conversations a CIO has is, how do I have less people to deal with? How do I reduce my procurement challenges? The ability to have fixed wireless internet connectivity on all my devices and consolidate mobile so it's less of a nightmare. That's a good entry point. And you don't have to start with all of it. Right? Start with something that makes sense for your customer and let them draw you in, let them help you expand.
So it's two things we're going to take away. 5G is going to eat everything. Remember that. And to the point around, start where you feel comfortable. Sort of think about all the different devices that take a 5G enabled SIM or a SIM, but particularly in this instance with T-Mobile 5G. The point is, start the practice, aggressively pursue it, and pursue it within the context that makes you feel most comfortable, and then expand from there.
Okay, so we've touched on this a few times, but suffice it to say, when you're getting a request for your customers in the verticals that you're operating today, and the conversation gets into a conversation about connectivity, gets into a conversation about wireless, and you've thought about Wi-Fi, and Wi-Fi just won't keep up, or it won't deliver you the reliability, the low latency, the security, the attributes that your customer needs. Just know that there's a team at T-Mobile that can help you with that conversation. They have that group, as I called ANS, right, where they're looking across the different spectrum options and will build the right solution that meets your customer's need, delivered as an OpEx model, which is incredibly important today. So the cost to entry is rather low. And in fact, when you compare the cost of 5G to Wi-Fi, you'll see that the economics actually bear out. So just get involved with them early and often.
Mike, do you mind if I put you on the spot and you just tell the crew here what you do and why you think this is a decent idea?
I will say I'm sort of a poster child and trial kit. Thank you. In November of last year, Ingram graciously invited me to their sort of Ingram World dig. And we met you, George, and we met T-Mobile. And we, by the way, we work with hospitals solely. That's all we do. We have about 100 hospitals that we provide various levels of consulting and services to. We do not sell equipment, so we're actually not in competition with any of you guys. However, we have to solve many problems at hospitals. And I'm assuming some of you, as VARs, have hospitals as clients, so you probably know some of these things. It's certainly a wireless problem. They all have problems with their Wi-Fi systems. They all are now having to deal with healthcare at home. So there needs to be some way to take telemetry data from home sites and move it into a private system and maintain security. There's like 20 different things that a hospital has to deal with that they consider, the hospital considers all independent, unrelated stuff. And they go to each different vendor looking for a solution. And we're one of those vendors. They come to us, and normally we then go to the salad bar and pick out the parts and say, this little, stir it up, here's what you need. But we've never found a central vendor that can do that for us. So we don't have to do that. So anyway, I was introduced to T-Mobile, and we spoke to T-Mobile about our clients. And one of our hospitals is within days of signing what essentially is an enormous agreement to turn over essentially all wireless functions, including DASs, MDM capabilities, a whole slew of stuff, to T-Mobile for a single price, to convert tens of millions of dollars in CapEx to OpEx over a very long period of time. And that's unique. We've never seen a carrier do that. So in many ways, when you were laying out, your thing, we chose many of those components, put it together into a unique package, and then T-Mobile is doing just that. So, any questions specifically about what we're doing? Other than like the generalities I just laid out.
Just maybe because a lot of people think, why do I need 5G? Why couldn't
Sure.
I just do Wi-Fi? Maybe help them understand the
Absolutely.
deltas between the two and why 5G in this case was the better solution.
Right. So most hospitals are either Cisco or Aruba when they have Wi-Fi, and many of them have fairly sophisticated Wi-Fi networks, but they're still a single network. You really can't have two parallel Wi-Fi networks. They're one Wi-Fi network. And when it does go down occasionally or when something breaks, those devices that depend on it are now largely useless. They have to wait until the signal comes back. Now that is fairly rare, but it does happen. And in some cases, there are machines that are involved in life support and other components, and yes, they have backup components on them for communication, but it doesn't always work properly. And there are some significant cases. So we needed to come up with a technology that allowed us to have a true failover to Wi-Fi, because all of our hospitals are moving to much more mobile systems, where they used to log into a PC and type some stuff in. Now they're all carrying little devices. And if those devices aren't in real time connected to patient monitors, to all sorts of systems, then people can actually be hurt by this. Mm-hmm. So network failure is now really truly a patient safety crisis in some ways. So having this T-Mobile network allows me literally to fail over from one and continue operating. So that's the first most obvious basis. The other thing about 5G is density. So from a cost point of view, and I'm guesstimating here because we don't know yet what T-Mobile is currently sending their teams around one of our hospitals. They're building about 3 million square feet of this, and we'll know from them very soon what exactly all the costs are. But I think at the end of the day, the cost will be about 25 to 30% at least less in terms of equipment if we were to compare it.
Right.
And then the last piece of it is it inherently allows me to leave the four walls of the hospital. I can't do that with Wi-Fi. Wi-Fi is as Harold said it's a public system, and I need complicated VPNs and other things to do that. With T-Mobile, I just simply say that phone's app continues to work when they walk right out of the hospital into a home, into a wherever. It's seamless. Perfect. So that's 5G for us.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. $50, please.
So
I think that would be a bargain for that discussion.
Yeah. Forget our earlier conversation.
Unfortunately, I think we're at time. I would say to you, if you've got any questions about 5G or how T-Mobile can help you drive more business, visit the booth downstairs. It's stacked full of experts, and they'd be happy to engage with you.
Yeah, we're open for business. We're very approachable, and would love to talk to you in any way. So thank you for spending some time with us after lunch, and I look forward to meeting you, hopefully personally. Thank you.